What is up, and welcome back to Talk Nutrition. Today we're back with another guest, Brandi Bradley. What's up?
Hello, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Pretty good. Just talked to your sister a couple of weeks ago. She was on the podcast as well.
Yeah, it was a good podcast. I liked it a lot, actually. I love what you guys had to say.
Awesome. So what I wanted to do is bring you on to talk a little bit more about like the functional side of things. I think when I talk to Angelina, for example, and I will say for a lot of my clients too, a lot of it is going to be basic lifestyle habits, those kind of things, right? Just not dieting, building muscle, those kind of things. But I'm seeing this more and more. I do think in the US, we do see more cases when it comes to functional issues, whether that's gut, hormonal, those kind of things. But it's popping up here over in Norway as well, and in Europe, and really it's worldwide, right? We're all in this kind of grinding culture where we just push ourselves, we undersleep, we diet too much, and then we see people struggle with gut issues, losing their menstrual cycle. And I saw a post that you posted up about fertility issues and hormonal issues, menstrual cycle. I kind of want to explore that because a lot of times I don't feel like people are being taken serious by their doctor, and it's just like, well, are you trying to get pregnant? No. Well, I just got on the pill, and then that's it.
Right.
you know.
Yep.
But before we dive in, let's actually start with you. Like, who are you? What do you do? Tell us a bit about your own journey as well, because you just told me you had a autoimmune condition yourself as well, right?
Yes, yes. So I'm Brandi. I've been a coach on the online space for the last 5 years. So I was initially coaching women through macro tracking, weight loss, and things like that. And then I just like you, started seeing a lot more issues within the health industry where there was weight loss resistance and fatigue and gut issues and so many things that were keeping women from seeing the full success that their body was capable of. And so that kind of led me into the direction of functional coaching, where now I am a hormone and gut health specialist, and I work alongside my practitioners. Actually, I have a team of functional doctors and practitioners and fertility specialists that help support my clients. And yeah, in 2019, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, Hashimoto's thyroid autoimmune disease, and at that time, I didn't have too much knowledge about functional coaching or functional medicine, so I was kind of left to my own devices because I was one of those women who went to doctors' offices and pushed back on getting lab work done. And when I did, at the time, I did have some knowledge because I was within the health industry and the coaching industry. So I understood that there was more pieces to the puzzle. And so I knew to dig a little bit deeper. I knew what labs to get, but it was really hard to get them. And I had to push and push and push. And finally, when I did get those labs, I was told that I had an autoimmune disorder. And the only recommended solution as my next steps were to eat Brazil nuts because they have selenium in them, and to get on levothyroxine. And it was honestly very frustrating, but I also knew that it wasn't the only solution. And so I went on this long journey. Unfortunately, it took me over 2 years to heal my body because I didn't have the support that I now give to my clients. But I truly am so grateful for the journey that I had to heal my Hashimoto's, because I only took medication for 6 months and I came off of it, have never gone back on it. My thyroid levels have been beautiful for the last 4.5 years. So I consider myself, in my opinion, when it comes to autoimmune issues, it's an immune disorder, right? And an immune disorder can rise from environmental issues, not necessarily from genetics. My entire family does not have a thyroid issue, does not have autoimmune issues, so it doesn't necessarily run in my family, so we know, right? But Hashimoto's is also extremely difficult to diagnose, and most women, over 60% of the population actually, is misdiagnosed or underdiagnosed with Hashimoto's because we don't look at those specific markers on lab testing, which is a very unfortunate thing, right? But I truly believe that you shouldn't be, defined by an autoimmune disease or defined by a diagnosis, because I truly do believe that you can heal at the root level to where you can live a life that is in perfect levels with no medications, because medications are truly things that just Band-Aid fix things and suppress what's going on underneath. So even if you take a medication and you see things that are getting better on your lab or lab work, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're healing. You're basically just suppressing what's going on and allowing the root cause of those issues to linger and progress until they get worse and worse and worse, and eventually you're going to see the reflection in that in your overall lab. So that's a little bit about me and my journey and what kind of led me here.
So that being said, right, so with Hashimoto's, it's difficult to diagnose, or at least maybe not if we look at the right things, right? So that would be the antibodies, right, TPO.
Yep.
Were there any other ones that you looked at and kind of pushed for, like when you kind of knew something was up?
Yeah, 100%. So typically doctors will only test for TSH. Maybe they'll test for a T4, right? Those are typical ones that you might see, but it's very rare that you'll get a T4. So you want to make sure that you get your TSH, which is not even a thyroid hormone. It's a pituitary hormone, okay? So if stress is playing a role, of course, your TSH might be the first thing that goes out of balance because we're under chronic stress and inflammation, okay? But to actually understand the functionality of your thyroid, you must get your T4, your T3, which that conversion between T4 into T3, your T3 is your most active form of thyroid hormone. It affects every single cell in your entire body. So if T3 is downregulated for any reason, every cell's function downregulates with it, okay? So we already know that systemically now we're having issues in every area of the body, not just the thyroid. This is why we can't treat thyroid in isolation. You have to treat the body as a whole, right? So that conversion happens in the gut and it happens in the liver. So just goes to show that you can't just focus on the thyroid. You have to also focus on the liver and the gut because they're all connected, right? So I would say TSH, T3, T4, reverse T3, and then I would also get a TPO and TGAB. So that will test for Hashimoto's, and then it will also test for Graves', which are both thyroid autoimmune issues as well.
I've seen it so many times where it's already pulling teeth here in Norway to get labs. I mean, we have a different healthcare system, you know, so I will say this, right? If we are a little lucky with our doctor and they're helpful, they'll just pull it. But basically how it works, like we'll pay a flat fee basically, which is really not that much. And we can request labs if we want to. But then it's like the doctor almost, they just generally want to have a good reason to test for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is fair. I do understand that as well. And, you know, they're working with resources from the government. But even for me, I was like, hey, I'm just interested. I'm not worried about anything. I'm just trying to optimize my health and I want to learn more, you know? So I was like, could we check, you know, this, and this, you know, lipids, those kind of things, and my testosterone? And they didn't want to check it. And I was like, okay, well, it's kind of interesting because it is the most important hormone that makes a man, right?
Yes.
And like, he just didn't want to test it. And I pushed again, and the next time again. And these are his exact words. I still So again, I'm back, you know, I asked, hey, can we check it this time? You know, I'm just really curious and I don't really understand why we wouldn't check because it's an important hormone. And I kind of made some things up, right? Because I told him like, yo, I have low energy and no sex drive. Yeah. And I was like, maybe then, you know? And he's like, no, we don't really test it unless you have, what was this word? Unless you've used anabolic steroids or you have bitch tits.
Wow.
So I just laughed. I was like, well, fuck, never mind, you know, like.
So have you still not been able to get your testosterone tested?
Yeah, I changed my doctor and they pulled it.
Perfect.
Yeah. But it was fine, you know, it was high, it was fine. But that just goes to show, like, it's already pulling teeth, vitamin D, right? Didn't want to test for it. I live in a place where we don't get any sunlight for 2 months straight. And even now it's already kind of like, you know, bad weather, those kind of things. So it's like, it's important. They didn't want to test. I'm like, okay, why not? Well, it's pretty important for us, right? Yeah. But are you supplementing? I was like, yeah, generally, yeah. I think it should be good. Okay, well, should be, right?
Right.
But kind of going back to thyroid, because I've seen this so many times. They might get a TSH, maybe a T4 if we're lucky, but we still don't know. Mm-hmm. I even had a client who had his thyroid gland removed just in case, because and this was really sad because his brother had thyroid cancer, and they thought maybe he did as well, and ended up just not being the case. Then he was put on, I think, only T4. But then from a lifestyle standpoint, I knew there was a lot to fix also, right? I could tell, right? Lifestyle was definitely a mess. But I'm like, look, dude, like, I get it, but we still don't know what's happening with T3. We still don't know what's happening with reverse T3. We don't know if you have antibodies, right? And these are important things to test, because why are you on medication that's supposed to lead to a certain result, but we're not tracking the results, right?
100%.
Which is, it's just wild. It's tricky. Luckily now I see some more, private lab options, those kind of things, which I will say, you guys, it's a lot easier in the US for my clients to get labs pulled, because we just go to a LabCorp, much better.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of online options now that can actually get testing sent to your home. Like the testing that we do for metabolic work is sent to my client's home, and they get to just do a simple blood prick on the finger, and they get to ship it back. So they don't even have to go to labs and get their actual blood drawn and things like that, which is really cool. So there's a lot more opportunity when you know what's available. But that's the problem, right? Is that our clients don't know what's available to them. They don't have access, like actual easy access to these types of testing. And even when they do, there can be sites where it's like 300 different types of tests, and they're like, what do I even need? And some people actually over test at the beginning, and they get way too many answers where they're like, okay, now you get metabolic, now you get thyroid, and now you're also getting sex hormones, and all of it is just too much too soon. Because if we bombard the body as a whole right out the gate, then we're not going to have the success that we need to. Because if systems in the body like liver are underregulated and underperforming, well, then if we're just supporting that while we're supporting 5 other systems, well, we're not going to see that success. So sometimes even over testing is too much.
Absolutely. So obviously there's a root cause to it, right? So when we're talking in your case, Hashimoto's, okay, so we're looking at the root cause, we're trying to figure that out. Do you know what was the main issue for you that kind of might have led to that?
Yes, 100%. So there was actually a couple of issues when I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. So there's never one root cause, and that is incredibly hard to accept as a woman or a man going through systemic issues, or just being diagnosed and not feeling like yourself, right? Because you're searching, and you think that if you get this one answer and you just know what's happening, that you'll have this sense of fulfillment, but you never will until you just focus on the first steps of healing and going through a phased approach to healing the body from the inside out, right? But when you look at root causes, there's always more than one. Sometimes there's 4, sometimes there's 5. You know what I mean? And for me, when I was in a specific state of health, I was bodybuilding. I just had a daughter, so I was about a year postpartum, maybe a little bit longer postpartum. But in that year, I was pushing towards body composition results. I hired a bodybuilding coach that really didn't take care of me. It was like an email check-in, and she was like, just tell me what your weight is, what your measurements are, and that was it. And I was like, okay, so this is all about like physical and physique results. It has nothing to do with my health. Great, but I didn't know that at the time, that it wasn't great. So for 6 months, I dieted, and I was in a constant calorie deficit, constant pulling calories down up until I got to about 1,300 calories. Okay. So I was severely depleted for long periods of time. Wasn't really guided around nutrition and nourishing myself and fiber intake and whatnot. So it was a lot of if it fits your macros, right? And that's kind of where my mind was at. Especially when you're in a deficit, you're like, well, I don't want to be restricted. I want to eat good food. And when you do that, then it becomes a if it fits your macros type of situation that depletes you from a lot of different nutrients that your body needs. Alongside that, I did recently switch birth controls. So I did go back on birth control post my first pregnancy, and I was on the NuvaRing. And once I switched that, I mean, everything just fell apart in my health. Everything. I dealt with severe digestive issues to the point where I was keeling over in pain almost every single night. I probably was kept up until 1, 2 in the morning every night just because I felt so full and my stomach was in so much pain that I would just walk around in circles in my house for hours. I'm not kidding. I'm not even exaggerating. For hours to try to digest my food. I would wake up in the middle of the night with this heartburn that felt like a heart attack. I thought I was dying. I went to multiple doctors even for those GI issues. And at the time, like I don't anymore, but at the time I was dabbling in THC. So I used it often. And my doctor told me that it was because I smoked marijuana. And I was like, bullshit. Like, this is not because I smoked marijuana. Like, no way. So I was like, okay, not going back to the doctor anymore. I'm just going to figure this out on my own. Found multiple mentors and things like that. But birth control was a major trigger for my body. It was such a huge stressor that was placed that kind of just tipped me over the edge to feeling like absolute trash and developed all those digestive issues. And I would say fatigue is another big one that I experienced. But digestive issues, acute infections in my digestive tract, and then birth control and the severe stress of long-term dieting is where I truly believe that a lot of my root causes stemmed from. And so it caused, if we're looking at root causes of what actually caused all these things, that would be it. But if we're talking about the root causes of internal imbalances, it would stem from my digestion. It would stem from my digestion and my liver function and the massive amount of inflammation that I endured in my body. And those 3 things were probably the biggest ones that made a difference once I started to focus on those and just how I felt and the way that I was able to reduce my symptoms.
Because as you say now, like you kind of see it as you don't have it anymore, right?
Yeah.
So that means you're not seeing those antibodies show up anymore?
Mm-mm.
Have you had a time where maybe, like, let's imagine like a high stress period where it might have been up?
I mean, could potentially. I didn't ever get tested,
Okay.
but I know the signs of what I used to feel when my TPO antibodies were high, and I never got to that point. And I'm a business owner, right? I have 2 young children, 6 and 2, so my life is stressful. It's not easy going every single day. I'm staring at a computer 8 hours a day too. So there's a lot that I endure as far as stress. So I think a lot of women also have the question of, how do you maintain this? How do you maintain not having a flare up, or how do you maintain not having Hashimotos or having high TPO antibodies again? And it has a lot to do with the nervous system. Has a significant amount to do with the nervous system, and you can still endure your daily stress and still have the healthiest body as long as you are very self-aware of what you are feeling. And so anytime I had high amounts of stress, I would have to reel it back in and be like, okay, what does my body need right now? I need to give it more of that, because you're never going to have periods of time where you're always consistent 100% in every area of your health. There's going to be times where business is a priority and you're grinding, right? Which can cause, symptoms to start popping up. Fatigue, energy crashes in the mid-afternoon, things like that. And you have to then, get real with yourself in certain times of the year and your life to say, okay, well, I just pushed really hard in this season of my life. Am I in a good place to now take care of myself a little bit more and make those things a priority? And it's an on and off battle, of course, but you just have to be very self-aware of your own body and what it's experiencing. So when I do start to experience fatigue or brain fog, which tends to be the very first thing that I do experience, I don't usually experience issues with my cycle or anything else. It's usually the energy. It's usually the brain fog. And when I start to experience that, I'm like, okay, we have to reel it back in, and I need to focus on these things. One specifically, nervous system regulation, because that's usually what kind of gets pulled back is the first thing when we're under stress. So that's my opinion there.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of overlap as I've gotten more into functional health, between like thyroid issues, and menstrual cycle, and gut and liver, and similar approaches too in terms of healing the body, right? Because let's say, because I'm thinking out loud here as well, like, because as you're explaining this, I'm like, this sounds very much like a client of mine who hasn't had her cycle for a year, and we're trying to figure that out now. So it could lead to, let's say, autoimmune. It could show up menstrual cycle wise, right? But a lot of times it's very much stress related. But what's like the main, like, let's say order, like let's say someone comes in and they do not have a menstrual cycle for a full year. We know the background is low calorie diets, a lot of, running, being very active, which I do believe is the main thing for her. Maybe nutrient deficiencies, right? Let's say we know that. How would you kind of go about that? Because I know this is something you help your clients with, right?
Yeah. So I think it comes down to asking the right questions first, right? Because if your client is, say, very high stress, well, of course, that's going to play a role in it. But if we're constantly doing nervous system regulation every day to combat that stress, and things are still not moving, well, then you have to ask yourself deeper questions, okay? Where is her gut health? Where is her liver? Where is her blood sugar, right? Do we have insulin resistance? Insulin resistance is one of the biggest issues with sex hormone dysfunction, and it's actually one of the leading infertility imbalances that women experience. So the majority of women who deal with infertility, which is also anovulation, right? That can happen with infertility is that we're having irregular cycles or anovulation. And that leading cause is due to blood sugar dysregulation or severe insulin resistance. And when we look at insulin resistance, well, insulin resistance causes high amounts of inflammation, and inflammation causes insulin resistance. So they go hand in hand. So there's a couple of things that you want to look at right out the gate. Tell me first, like, does your client have digestive issues? Does she deal with constipation, diarrhea, or any type of digestive symptoms?
Yeah, constipation for sure. Like, and I just to be full transparent, I'm also not bringing you on to like work through my client's case, but like, I just thought of this person. I'm like, this is exactly like it ties in with the topic, But no, we're seeing a lot of constipation for sure. Multiple days of not going, feeling a little bloated, but not really gassy necessarily. But constipation is one of the main issues right now. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And so when you see those types of things come up, we have to, the way that I look at clients' dysfunction and what their main issue is. So like with your client dealing with a loss of cycle for over a year, we have to look at the hierarchy of the body. And what I mean by that is how the body actually functions. So we have sex hormones, which is regulated by what, right? Which is regulated by what? Which is regulated by what? And you just keep digging down until you find the root systems that go upstream and cause functionality or promote functionality in your sex hormones. And so that is how I look at every single case, no matter what the actual issue is, whether it's weight loss resistance or loss of a cycle or infertility, whatever it is. You always start at the very, 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 very root, which typically tends to be inflammation, insulin resistance, or blood sugar, as well as liver dysfunction. Because even if you take gut, well, that's a big issue. She might be having a difficult time absorbing nutrients, which can very well be part of the case, right? But even when you look at gut, a lot of people think that gut health is the root of everything, right? Because your immune system lies in your gut. Well, yes, that has a lot to do with that. But if your liver and your blood sugar isn't regulated, then you're going to have a very hard time healing your gut, right? There's a lot of times in my past where I've taken women just straight into a GI map and done a GI protocol because that was their main source of dysfunction, and their protocols never worked. And I was like running it and pushing them for 10 weeks and nothing would shift. And it was because there were deeper root issues at hand, and it wasn't just all about the gut. It has so much to do with how regulated your nervous system is. And I would say that's the number one step. So many women are extremely dysregulated and they don't even know it. So I'm sure you've seen this in your clients, and I don't know if you bring in like meditation or breath work with them, which I'm pretty sure you do, but if you do, I mean, have you noticed that some women have a very hard time doing those things? Or maybe women are like, this isn't for me. I can't meditate. It's boring or whatever. They'll start to make those comments around it. But that's even more of a reason why you should do it. Because if you cannot sit with yourself, if you cannot get your body to calm down, so if you're sitting there trying to do meditation and you're thinking about all the to-do things that you need to do on your list, that is a clear sign that your nervous system is so dysregulated, and it's the very thing that's keeping your body from wanting to heal because it does not feel safe. Your body can only heal if it feels safe. So even though it might feel uncomfortable, it is the very thing that you need to start with, and you need to do it uncomfortably until it feels comfortable.
I'm just laughing because of two reasons. One, that was exactly me when I got into meditation.
Yes!
Because, as I started coaching, I got into self-development, and I have mentors, and they got me into journaling and meditation and exploring those things. I'll tell you this, I was not someone who was very open to those things. But meditation, especially in the beginning, I got this app, Headspace. I heard a lot of good things about it, which I love. Now I think it's a great app. I recommend it to all my clients. But I would sit down. I would get frustrated just from sitting still, or I would fall asleep. It was either or. But I'd mostly get frustrated and impatient and kind of waiting and then opening my eyes, checking the timer, when is this shit done, But then over time, I gave it an honest shot, and it actually started working. Same with journaling, In the beginning, I'm like, why the fuck am I writing these things? Why would I write down 3 things I'm grateful for every single day,
Well, yeah.
But then it starts to work.
Great gratitude. You're just like, I am grateful for my house. I am grateful for my kids. And it's very generic at first. Yeah. But gratitude doesn't just come from, being aware of what you're grateful for. It's actually sitting with it, feeling it, and actually seeing how it affects your life, right? If you're grateful for your kids, start thinking about why you're grateful for your kids. What do they do for you, your life? What do they bring to your happiness? You know what I mean? That's where gratitude really takes the effect, is when you give yourself that space to actually feel it.
It takes time to build a habit, and it takes time for you to really start noticing, hey, actually, because that's when it hit me. I'm like, I catch myself now just at random moments feeling great for something just normal, kind of in a normal kind of day, walking outside, it's a good weather, whatever. That was a few months in, and then I was like, oh shit, it's kind of working, I feel But it's exactly that. But I've seen this with clients too, right? People have a hard time slowing down. Mm-hmm. We're currently doing a challenge where one of the tasks is just, I call it 10 minutes of stillness, right? Where for 10 minutes, because everyone has 10 minutes. That's why I wanted to, set the bar low. For 10 minutes, I don't care what you do. You can meditate, you can grab a journal, you can read, sit outside with no music, whatever, or do whatever you want. Sit still for 10 minutes, just that, right?
I love that.
And it's the hardest thing for people to do in the challenge. And it's also the thing they're most positive about and excited, because they're like, I've never done this, right? I've never actually sat with my thoughts. And now we're exploring that, I think it's a really cool thing to do, and it's very important because, you and me, we run businesses. It is a stressful kind of life. We have to catch ourselves too and make sure we're not pushing ourselves. I'm pretty positive. I don't want to call myself burned out. Well, at the moment, for sure not. But I don't want to say I fully burned out, but it was 2 times I was really pushing it, right? And I was feeling it physically. I had this pressure, all the time. And my mentor at the time was like, dude, this week you're just going to slow it the hell down. I don't care what you do. Just sit outside, build a campfire, sit on top of a mountain, whatever you want to do. You're going to chill this week. And then we're going to keep these things in, because right now you're pushing yourself too hard. Which even goes back to coaching and mentorship, right? You don't just want to push people, which I've seen with a lot of clients who come in. They said, hey, my PT put me on 1,200 calories it wasn't working. And my feedback in my check-ins was, well, you must just not be following the plan and you just try again and try harder. You know, like no, sometimes as a coach and mentor, we need to take the responsibility to slow people down and really push for that, because we're not going to get healthy or get the physique results with a fried nervous system. Right.
Well, and what is the number one thing that holds people back from actually seeing success? It's not being more consistent. It's not pushing themselves harder in the gym. It's working through your mindset and becoming stronger mentally and being more resilient to stress. And how do we do that? By building a strong nervous system. That's how you do it. So if that comes first, everything else will be so easy. I remember when I was macro coaching and I didn't implement any of this. It was just macros and workouts, right? That's what it was. And I probably had the lowest show up rate of my clientele that I've ever had in my business, because there was so many other missing pieces that weren't addressed in doing that, right? Because and this is where I think a lot of clients struggle, or just, you know, clients outside of our program struggle, because they are told by society that, you know, you got to get in the gym. It just takes consistency, right? Like, just get in the gym. That's what I need to do. I had a conversation with a woman who I actually coached way back when I was in macro tracking, or a macro coach. And she was like, I know what I need to do. And I'm like, okay, what's that? She goes, drink water, get in the gym consistently, sleep. And I was like, okay, though that's a great list, right? But doesn't mean that you're going to actually do it. Doesn't mean that you're going to put all these things to action, because those aren't the things that you need to be doing, because sure, you already know that you need to be doing them, but that's not the very thing that's holding you back, right? It's your mindset. It's your nervous system. You're constantly go, 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 and you are people pleasing by putting everybody else before you. I had another client who's that was her issue, and we stopped all protocols, all testing, all all nutrition habits. I mean, we stopped everything. And all we did was have calls every other week and specifically talk about her mindset, setting boundaries, and protecting her happiness. And now she's in a point where she actually feels capable, strong-minded. She's happier because she set those boundaries. And now she's getting after better nutritional habits. And she's getting her hormones rebalanced, because now she has the capability of bringing things in that she wasn't able to do before. And that just goes to show that was all nervous system issues. It's the fear that we hold inside our bodies to hold those boundaries or put those boundaries into place, because we fear that people will get mad at us or we'll lose friends because of it. Well, if we do, so what? They weren't your friends in the first place.
Yeah. This is a big one that comes up when it comes to, you know, alcohol. And right, I'm putting someone through a protocol soon, and I'm like, look, there's gonna be no alcohol, otherwise we might as well just not do this. Like, we have to pull it. We're gonna pull caffeine. We're gonna pull all things like artificial sweeteners and gluten and dairy. We have to follow this to a T. There's more than just a fat loss conversation here. Like, we have to dial this in. And if cutting alcohol and caffeine for, even if it's 2 weeks, if that's a problem, that says enough already, I think, right? Because we're either over-reliant on caffeine, or we're too connected to that alcohol and we're not in control. So key that sometimes, like, we make those decisions for ourselves, and we have to, and it's a difficult thing, right? For most of my life, I used to care way too much about what other people might think or say. But it's hard, I feel like, for some people to make that decision and say, you know what? I'm just going to do me. I'm going to choose me. I'm going to choose to go to bed earlier. I'm going to choose my health. I'm going to choose not to drink. Mm-hmm. But then dealing with which is mostly fucking grown-ups, right? Who give them the comments, you know? Yep. I'm talking about clients in their 50s who are, you know, having a hard time with this, right? That's what's holding them back. What other people might think or say, right? And getting to that point of being like, no, I'm just going to choose me. It's a work in progress, I feel like, for a lot of people. And it's not just something you decide, right?
No, it is definitely not something that you decide. I think it comes from, you know, understanding even where it's coming from. So if you dig deep into, okay, if you've come to the awareness that you're a people pleaser, well, why? where did that come from? Like, always get curious about your habits. Always get curious about why something is difficult, because it's not just difficult to be difficult. It's difficult because of something that you experienced in your past, something that you were told, something that you were programmed to think about yourself, right? But isn't actually true, because it wasn't a thought pattern and or, you know, an outlook or perspective that you developed just today, right? It was something that was developed over time. And I do believe that has been very helpful, not only to myself, but to a lot of my clients, and just becoming more aware of what all of these thoughts and feelings even came from.
Childhood, other things, your friend group maybe, right? So many things. Getting curious is one of the most important things, I feel like. Mm-hmm. Just really, like, not even allowing, like, let's say we have a terrible week, we're stressed, we're sad, whatever it is. We're just not feeling great. Like, not allowing those emotions to take over, but just getting curious. Hey, why do I feel like this? Okay, so yesterday I binged. Instead of beating ourselves up with cardio or restricting even more the next day, let's actually just go right back to what we were doing, do what we know works, but actually sit with it for a sec. Yep. And just really try to break it down. Like, hey, let's actually figure it out. Like, okay, what happened? Why? How did I feel? Who was I with? Right? Those kind of things. And then trying to understand, like, that's one of the most key things I feel like for personal development and making all these things work. Because you said it, right? Mindset is the real foundation. And of course, regulating your nervous system, those kind of things. But if we don't address the mindset, you can have the best protocol in the world. It's not going to work if you can't follow it, or, you know what I mean?
True.
Do you see a lot of these cases where clients have had no menstrual cycle for like a very long time, let's say?
Yeah. I had actually one of my clients who is still with me. She came to me and she was on birth control. She came off of it, didn't have a period for 7 months. Joined coaching with me, still didn't have her cycle for another 2 months, got it back, but then she would get it every other month, or her cycles were very, very long. And so she went through her entire journey as well. So there's a lot of reasons why someone would lose their period, right? A lot of it comes from hormonal birth control, especially just because, you know, females are on it for decades, unfortunately, and that stops the connection between your brain and your ovaries. And so reestablishing that connection can be a very difficult and long process. There are definite things that you can implement to kickstart the body and to reestablish those connections, of course, so you can shorten that time frame of getting the period back. But there's also things like undereating, severely undereating for long periods of time, very high stress. I can't even tell you how sensitive our cycles are to stress. If you are, you know, if you ovulate on day 15 of every month, but say you're about to travel on the 11th, and your body is adapting to that stress. Travel is stress on your body. Even though, like, travel might be fun for you, it's going to push ovulation back. And now it's going to prolong your cycle, or it's going to make it longer because of that stress response that your body's having. Imagine women under chronic amounts of stress, how that's going to impact your cycle greatly. So, and of course, overtraining is a really big one too. So for the cardio bunnies out there, and the women who just can't stay out of weight training, you know, and are doing that 6-7 days a week, well, it could be a very big part of why you're losing your cycle as well.
Hormonal birth control especially is such a big one, because like you said, it shuts down the connection between the brain and the ovaries, which it's a big problem if you think about it, right? It's going back to testosterone. Like, if there was medication that would absolutely tank someone's testosterone, it wouldn't even be a thing.
Right.
Right?
Well, actually, did you know that they did come out with a male birth control? But because men had the side effect of a headache, they discontinued it, even though there was far more detrimental effects to women's hormonal birth control than there was to men. It's Read the studies, ladies. Read the studies.
That's exactly the point. You know, like, if it's men, then no. And in the meantime, I give my male clients shit sometimes. I'm like, dude, like, it's not that, like, for you, like, you don't have that much shit to deal with. I'm supporting you, right? Obviously, and sometimes a little bit of tough love is necessary. Look, dude, like, women have it way harder than us. Like you're not dealing with like menstrual cycles and like so it's like let's actually but no, I mean let's be honest, dudes are also going through tough times and I don't always say this, but some cases some people need to push.
Yes.
But no, really though, like you girls need to deal with a lot of shit and it shows up really quickly. A little bit of stress, cycles off, right? Birth control, once again, let's imagine you at some point do want to come off of it and maybe have kids. It might take ages for you to actually get the cycle back, start ovulating. The doctor's not going to know about it, what to do, which I think is
Well,
worrying.
doctors are recommending that you come off of birth control a year before you want to try. So, like, ask yourself why. If your doctor is telling you to come off birth control an entire year before you start having kids, can you, like, if we just think about that for a second, you can only imagine the detrimental effects of birth control on the woman's body if she needs an entire year after coming off of birth control to get her body to a place where it can actually conceive without any support.
Yep, without any support. There's nutrient deficiencies. I mean, let's not even skip over the fact that, probably depends on which ones, but like anxiety, depression, like these are all real symptoms from the pill, right? It's not just like I can or cannot have kids. Like it literally messes up your whole system, really.
It messes up who you are. I mean, I just talked about this the other day. I mean, women experience such debilitating mental states of mind, right? Where they are severely depressed, anxious, and on edge and quick to anger and all of these things. And then one day they wake up and they hate themselves. They're like, who am I? Who is this person? I don't recognize them. And they go to the doctor and they just get prescribed depression medication or anxiety medication. But it has nothing to do with that. But it has everything to do with the actual internal health of your body and your stress response. I mean, we are so over medicating depression and anxiety because we're not dealing with these root issues. It's probably the most frustrating thing as a functional coach that I see in healthcare, because all of that can be healed using our holistic strategies, nutrition and lifestyle and natural supplementation. And it blows my mind that we don't try to go in that direction first. Like, there is a reason you weren't depressed and now you are. Look at that timeline. Look at your nutrition patterns. Look at your lifestyle patterns. How have things shifted over that course of time? And you will find the answers. And you will understand that medication isn't always the answer to those things.
And I'm going to say this too, like medication needs to be there for certain things. I'm not against medication, but I would love, this is maybe unrealistic kind of dream, but like I would love some type of collaboration between doctors and health coaches, right? Now, I know a lot of peers, maybe including yourself, who have medical staff on a team, and there's a little bit of teamwork there, which is amazing, right?
Yep.
But generally speaking, you don't get that advice. I have another client who just came to me in July, insulin resistance PCOS, fertility issues, they couldn't have kids, cycles all over the place, and she was put on 1,000 calories by her doctor, and all the doctor said was, you need to lose weight. So then I'm like, fuck, like, why are people being recommended these crazy things? Because 1,000 calories is not good for anyone.
Well, so when you look at allopathic medicine, there's a time and a place for that, right? Like, we need doctors in our world, we need emergency medicine, we need those things. Okay, that's not the case here, but the difference between allopathic medicine and functional health coaching, or just health coaching in general, is that one focuses on medicine, the other one focuses on holistic lifestyle and nutritional strategies. They are very, very different, right? So when we look at medicine, we look at a symptom and we figure out how to manage or heal that symptom. So now we've gotten into symptom management instead of symptom healing over here. And that's the difference. So when we're were being prescribed 1,000 calories by your doctor, well, his sole goal or her sole goal is to make sure that that weight loss, that issue that they came in with, you want to solve. So the best way that you know how to do that is by telling you to restrict your calories, because in the mind, it is calories in versus calories out. It is as simple as that, but it's not as simple as that. And that's where the frustration comes from, is like, we both have our lanes, right? Like, we are not doctors and we need to stay in our health coaching lane. They are not health coaches and they need to stay in their lane, right? But they can also develop that nutritional piece, that lifestyle piece, that greater understanding of how the body works to then help, patients in a deeper way. And that's just my opinion. And I feel very strongly about that, actually, because I do believe that if we could integrate nutrition and lifestyle and coaching into allopathic medicine, everything would be unstoppable. Yeah. People would actually heal. We wouldn't have an obesity rate of 78%, because we would finally, cross paths, and we would mend our services, and we would be able to deliver services that change lives.
Yeah. And that's how it should. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, that's how it should be. It's like, so you come in with a problem. Okay, hey, let's go through this person. We know it's from overeating or whatever it may be. Let's not just say, hey, take this, or right. Like, let's actually refer out when when you need to, maybe get on some type of medication. Right? There's absolutely a place for it. Many times, like, it's necessary. But like, there has to be some type of like combination or referral kind of setup, because it's not that people, it's not a medicine problem. It's a lifestyle problem, right?
It's
not that they're unhealthy. Yeah, it's an environment. It's like, it's environment, mindset, lifestyle, habits, eating. Like, they're not unhealthy because they're not taking certain medications. Like, they're unhealthy because of their lifestyle, and that needs work, right?
Well, and the importance, I believe, in, I think the difference between allopathic and coaching is the ongoing accountability. We don't want to do this journey alone, nor should you ever have to do it alone. I mean, we're already isolated in our own homes. We're already isolated in our homes, working, right? Working from home in front of a computer alone all day, right? We're already isolated. But yet now you feel like crap, and now you're being told to go on this health journey by yourself, and you trust your doctors, you go to your doctors, and then you get sent home and say, hey, I'll see you in 3 months. Well, in those 3 months, who is educating you, who is hyping you up, who is keeping you accountable, who is guiding you, leading you, and showing you what is actually possible, is also the powerful thing about coaching, right? And how that can really help bridge the gap between, functional coaching and doctors, is being able to have that guidance until your next appointment.
Yeah. Plus, going back to blood work, now we can say, hey, okay, so we think there may be a metabolic issue, or with the thyroid, let's check these markers so the client understands not to just have TSH checked, maybe T4, but actually the whole, like, that's where 100%. And it's the accountability. It's having someone on your team, actually someone who does have the time, because again, defending doctors here, they don't have that much time with you. So they also just have the 15 minutes, and they have to do something in those 15 minutes, which cannot be continuous follow-up and accountability and talking back and forth and education, right? That's why it's so important for people like you and myself, and we also love what we do, and like, put a lot of time and effort into this as well, to keep advocating for just healthy lifestyles and actually helping people with this, and kind of cutting out the noise as well. That being said, because I do want to be respectful of your time, I actually had one little question that kind of popped up a little bit earlier, which I would love to kind of dive into, because when it comes to functional health, I'm very much interested in it. I think it's necessary, right? Functional health coaching. So we got to look at the gut, we got to look at the liver, and those kind of things. And then I see another kind of side of the fitness industry that will shout, liver, like, you don't need to do liver protocol because your liver works just fine. Yeah, for a healthy individual, absolutely.
Right.
And is the typical liver detox bullshit? Yes, 1,000%. Right, the typical, like, the detox teas and whatever.
Yes.
But
Yes.
like, the liver is such a key player in this whole conversation. Liver detoxification. It's connected to the gut, your hormones, and those kind of things. And this is also where, like, I had a hard time in the beginning because of this, to be honest with you, because now I was getting more interested in liver detoxification, gut health, and then I see all these people being like, well, it's this bullshit because you have a liver and you're right, and it works just fine. Could you briefly explain the role of the liver when it comes to sexual health, but also gut health, even thyroid, right? Just your hormones in general.
Yeah. So, I mean, your liver is the powerhouse organ of your entire body. If it doesn't function at its highest level, then every functionality slows down within the body. I mean, the biggest components of your liver, I mean, it does over 500 processes in the body. So, I mean, we don't have time to go through all of them. But the ones that will make most sense to you are the fact that, one, it metabolizes estrogen out of the body, or it metabolizes estrogen and then gets excreted from the gut, right? If your estrogen is not getting out of the body, then it's getting recirculated into the body, causing estrogen dominance, which also then puts women at risk for ovarian cancers, breast cancers, cervical cancers, right? So, and you have 3 different estrogens, and they all need to go down their own pathway, the right pathway, the most supportive and healthy pathway. And if your liver isn't functioning, it will not do that. Okay, and then it puts you at further risk of lots of inflammation, more gut issues, and then this is where a lot of those period issues come up because women are dealing with estrogen dominance. And estrogen dominance is not just a I have too much estrogen issue. It is I have an imbalance between estrogen and progesterone. And if those two are not in healthy ranges within each other and in isolation, then we are going to have period issues and infertility and so many other things that women deal with. Okay, but that's just one thing that it does for the sex hormones. But now it also creates that conversion between T4 and T3 of your thyroid hormone. And that's responsible for 20% of your metabolic function. 20% may seem like a very small amount, but it's actually huge when you're trying to lose weight. It's huge when you're trying to bring it back into balance. And so if that conversion isn't optimal, then everything is going to slow down. Your metabolism is going to slow down. You're going to feel sluggish. You're going to feel fatigued. You're going to feel just this overall feeling of just unwell, right? It's also responsible for metabolizing cortisol. If you're metabolizing cortisol too fast or too slow, you're going to cause imbalances with that cortisol production throughout the day, which is going to cause blood sugar imbalances, energy deprivation. I mean, it's going to make it really difficult to feel alive in your body, right? Amongst a million other things. I mean, it has a lot to do with blood sugar and insulin, right? If your body is under high stress, but you're depleting carbohydrates, well, it's just going to keep on dumping sugar into your bloodstream, and nothing's ever going to change because you're high stress, right? So the liver plays a lot of different roles within the body, and our detox teas helpful? They can actually be. Like dandelion root tea can actually be extremely helpful for detoxification, but going through like a detox like 5-day cleanse kind of thing can be unsafe. And this is where things can work for some and not work for others, and you have to be very careful about what you implement, because one person can have severely negative effects of going through a detox phase. One can have amazing effects, right? Some can get worse before they get better. And so it's really important to understand where the body is functioning at its baseline first, before we're just like throwing these like aggressive detoxes. And like those who do you know what a coffee and enema is? Okay, well, those are extreme, like very extreme. But people will do that because they're like, oh yeah, you need to do a coffee enema. And it can have severe negative effects of that. So is supporting the liver important? Yes, but you support it in a way that's right for the individual client. This is where that personalization comes into play. It's in not a one-size-fits-all approach either. And if it is a one size fits all approach, which I hope it's not, it better be very, very, very gentle.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, like long story short, like liver health is super, super key. There are particular protocols for liver detoxification and supporting that. Sometimes it's necessary. But the traditional stuff that you would see in like an ad on Instagram or something, like stay away from it, basically, If it's a 5-day thing, like you're not going to detox anything in 5 days, like, And again, like this is people just jump on something because they think this might be it, and they do it, and they either just lose money or they're worse off, right?
I will say though, like aside from detoxes, cleanses, things like that, your liver has to be supported. It is the most important. And even if, and I see this a lot in my practice, where women will get their liver enzymes tested, they will be completely normal. I will still support the liver because you have lived decades. And within those decades, you have endured chemicals, toxins, inflammation, poor food quality, stress, chronic stress, trauma, all things that overburden the liver. So I don't care who you are or what your life has been like, you have some sort of inflammation that can be supported and optimized through optimizing liver function. But detox teas or detox cleanses can be way too harsh, and therefore supporting the liver means in very gentle ways through nutrition. You can support the liver in great ways through nutrition. You can also support it through nervous system regulation, and you can also support it through very gentle natural supplementation support.
100%. And this is all stuff that you should probably do with a practitioner. I think for most people, try not to follow ChatGPT or Google. Let's maybe not do that. Let's work with someone who knows their stuff, like yourself. Like find someone who's specialized in this. With that, I actually wanted to wrap it up and just also kind of ask you if you have any announcements or anything to share, like where people can find you. Because I think when people are struggling with gut issues or hormonal or anything like that, you're going to be a great resource to go to, right? So where can people find you?
You can find me at Better with Coach B on Instagram. You can also email me at betterwithcoachb@gmail.com.
Perfect. I'll link that in show notes.
Awesome.
And I'll talk to you soon. I'll see you in Dallas.
Cool. Yes, you will. I'm super excited for that. And thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Of course. We'll talk soon.